We are Hunt and Darton. I am Hunt. She is Darton.
Yes, I am.
We are artists and your hosts of IPTV.
And we've been working together for over a decade, collaborating and making work for and with people in the places they live across the UK and internationally.
And we are here to smooth the transition into all these new things we need to know about the Arts Council. You know, it's changed. Everything's changed.
Everything, yeah.
Why did they have to do that? Why did they do that? You know, why did they do that to us? Why? Why did they do that?
It's okay.
Is it?
It's okay, don't panic. Look, we've got this. We've got this, Hunt. We are here to talk you through the new investment principles the Arts Council are suggesting should be at the heart of everything we do.
These investment principles, or IPs, because there always has to be an acronym, are tools for making art and doing what we do well, and you will definitely need to talk about them when you're applying for funding from the Arts Council.
This builds on what you already do. This can be done at your speed and should be specific to your practice or organisation.
And most of us naturally care about people in the world around us, and that's what they're really about. Welcome to IPTV. Over 4 episodes, we are going to chat about the 4 investment principles, talking frankly to brilliant people across the sector. We will unpick and demystify what it all means and what we might need to do for all the right reasons.
That's right, and we're doing that from 4 different locations.
See what we did there.
All the 4s,
Yeah.
1 per principal, inviting guests from that city or region to join us on the couch to have a chat.
Good old chat, yeah. There's also an Arts Council representative, you know? For each show.
Good,
Yeah.
because it is all their fault.
Yes, it is all their fault. So where are we and what's happening anyway?
Well, today we are in St Helens, in the glorious offices of Heart of Glass, a prolific cultural people and places organisation that makes great art happen throughout St Helens. This is one of our favourite locations for our collaborations. We've brought all of our projects here as the people here are pretty awesome, and Heart of Glass for many years have developed brilliant connections with their community.
Yeah, I loved Radio Local here in Hunt and Darton Cafe. And who do we have with us today and what's happening anyway?
Well, today we are chatting to Alice Sharp, who is Artistic Director and founder of Invisible Dust, Ian Greenall, Head of School for Creative and Performing Arts at St Helens and Knowsley College, Helen Harland, Event Manager at Manchester City Council, and from the Arts Council we welcome Andrew Ellerby, Senior Manager of Environmental Responsibility. Also joining us is Anne-Marie and Kath from Phoenix Plant-Based Eatery, providing us with some much needed food and, well, cake.
So yes, welcome to IPTV. So Darton, what are these 4 investment principles?
It's a good question, Hunt, and I've got them all here. So they are inclusivity and relevance, environmental responsibility, dynamism, and ambition and quality.
Oh, it's a lot. It's quite a lot to handle all in one. Let's break it down. Which investment principle are we dealing with today?
It's environmental responsibility.
Do we know what this investment principle means?
Yes, we do.
Do we?
I think we do.
So let's just say this is where we're at with it right now.
I think so.
So from what we understand so far, this investment principle is about the world, our world. It's about what we can all do to look after our world, what we need to understand, the impact of making our work has, and how to prevent or limit the damage that we might cause the environment.
There is a climate and environmental crisis, as we all know, and although work and initiatives are happening, this IP asks us to not just be sustainable and monitor our environmental data, but to take responsibility for our environment across all our work.
What does that even mean?
I suppose it means tackling the impact we have more in every part of our thinking and practice. So be more proactive and not just reactive.
That's not as natural as I'd like it to be, but I suppose if you've pushed it further, you might have to change the way you do things rather than just do them as well as you can. Something like that?
Yeah.
Then you could lead by example, which could help others do it, and understand the situation more as it evolves. And further to that, you could put the messages around the crisis in the work itself.
Jem,
What?
there's a problem.
What?
The drinks trolley.
Oh, it's bad. It's a massive fail.
Okay, so maybe just take those.
Yep.
Take those. Take that.
Get rid of these.
Take that a second.
That's it.
Just going to get rid of this really quickly. Yeah,
Okay.
great.
check out that Capri Sun that we had. It delights us, but it's got to go, despite all the nostalgia.
Yeah.
And how, it's the poshest thing we ever had in our packed lunch. It's not good for the environment.
But there are some things that we do right already. There are some things we're doing. If you look at our touring model, we do what people are now calling slow touring. With our projects such as Hunt and Darton Cafe and Kids Business, we spend over a month in each location as opposed to one night. We take over empty shops using an existing resource, producing activity to animate struggling high streets, but also not requiring extensive production. We work with local suppliers and people, limiting the need for travel or freight, and would return everything we have used by giving materials away to the community or buying from local charities, which we then redonate to at the end of the project.
Yeah, and with Kids Business, as we were inventing and opening a business with young people of that town, we are careful to teach and nurture decisions in favour of the environment, in what and how the business is then run.
Okay, so the model itself works less against the environment already than, say, a show with a big set and a cast moving quickly from location to location.
Yeah, but there's still so much we don't do. But it helps. We might not have to fundamentally change our infrastructure. We need to look more at data and how to collect that and monitor our full environmental impact, perhaps not just our immediate carbon footprint, but including things like our audience's impact. And what about things like digital carbon footprint?
Yes.
Or how about, carbon offsetting, might not be enough. That might not be the solution. I mean, what does it all mean?
There's loads more to do, but we don't have to do this alone.
Phew.
It's going to be okay. Arts Council is going to communicate, update and give us tools to ensure we are responsible if we aren't already, and to help us whatever stage we're at in the journey.
Okay, because it's a lot of responsibility.
Yes, environmental responsibility.
See what you did there.
But it's obviously worth it, even if the expectations are pretty mega. This is not just getting everyone a sippy cup and a fancy water bottle.
No, it's not. Okay, well, let's try and understand it more by welcoming our brilliant panel who can have a good old chat about it, basically.
Yeah,
We're
we
here to have a
can.
good old chat about it. They know more. Welcome to IPTV.
Okay, so we're going to kick off with some questions. We're going to start with you, Helen. Helen has worked as an event manager at Manchester City Council for 10 years, involved in event delivery, commissioning and supporting others to deliver events across the city. She was recognised as a creative green champion by Julie's Bicycle in 2020 and has used event downtime during the pandemic to focus on projects to support organisers and suppliers in setting and achieving their sustainability goals.
What does the move from sustainability to full-on responsibility mean to you?
For me, I think it's about, as you were just saying before, the all-encompassing nature. So not just about the counting of what you have done post-event, I will talk about events a lot, but post, whatever that activity is. But it's about encompassing it into the full range of planning and delivery and the monitoring, and then reviewing that monitoring to sort of feed back in. So it's, I think, embedding it into all aspects of the work.
So how do you put on a great event that manages all of the environmental responsibility ambitions, but does not compromise the art and audience experience?
Looking at the full picture of what you're doing, where your main impacts are, where you can have the most impact through making changes and focusing in on those areas. It's looking at the energy for us. Energy, transport are usually the biggest areas, and waste, which can encompass food and drink within that as well, or the actual sourcing of food and drink separately. But audience travel obviously is a huge impact for events, cultural venues. And it's one of the most difficult to affect because you're not directly responsible for it. We're always trying to look at and trying to encourage other event organisers and cultural venues in Manchester to think about those big ticket items. So what we released in 2019 was a series of sustainable event guides to help event organisers in looking at the sustainability of the event and focusing around those areas that I've just said around energy, waste, transport and a few others. So really practical guides for if you're thinking, I don't know where to start, it can guide you through and really look at where your biggest impact areas are.
Have you got an example like where you've actually had to make a real life change?
Manchester Day is probably a good example of that. It's an event we've been doing, and we've looked at a lot of the logistics around that and how we change how the event is delivered. So it's always had sustainability at its heart anyway, but we've changed a lot of things behind the scenes. The making process with the artists is very sustainable. It's a lot of reuse of items, making best use of resources, both budget-wise, but also to limit the impacts of waste, really. But in terms of how we limit the impact to the audience, they will come to an event, a family-friendly event in the centre of Manchester, and be wowed by an amazing parade. And whether the theme was something unrelated to climate change or climate change, they're going to still get a really great event to attend, really colourful and vibrant. But there's going to be that messaging behind the scenes as well, which we're going to push out through the comms of the event to again inspire that individual action.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you were saying about the event organisation, it's also the actual content of the art. So we work with contemporary artists, and a lot of artists that we're working with are thinking about the materials they actually make the pieces with. So you've got this lovely new sculpture, which is very accessible and has got a low carbon footprint. So in that way, we've managed to keep the quality and achieve the environmental responsibility.
Welcome, Ian. We're coming to you now. Ian Greenall is Head of School for Creative and Performing Arts at St Helens and Knowsley College. They've combined now. He has lectured since 1998 and previously held positions at Liverpool John Moores University and Manchester Metropolitan University. Alongside his lecturing, Ian continues to create and perform professionally in the UK and internationally.
Where are the young people at when it comes to climate and environmental crisis?
I guess despite what we might have seen on the news over the last year about the teenagers leading the rebellion, it's not something that I actually have seen on the ground, I have to say, and it's and we're trying to get it. You know, it takes work to get the students involved in environmental discussions, environmental issues, and then it's about trying to then think about how it maybe links into the courses a bit more. There are projects that go on specifically around environmental issues, but then it's the wider themes around, you know, not wasting too much paint. Theatre students reusing products rather than chucking and starting from scratch every time. I suppose because of the pressures, financial pressures on education, and particularly arts in education, it's something we're probably very good at anyway. This idea of reusing and repurposing, it's something that we've always done and kind of happened naturally.
What's been your favourite prop transformation?
We found a screen, a huge gauze from a previous production of a dark forest that we lit from behind and had projections within and beyond, and it just created this beautiful patterns thing. So it just, you couldn't even tell that it was woods in the end. It just created these gorgeous textures that fitted a project that we were working on.
It's very clear you've been working with young people who are going to be the next generation. What kind of projects do you implement surrounding climate change, and what effects does this have on the young people?
With our younger students, an example of one of the projects we've been doing recently is with our graphic students. So they've been creating designs for posters, for T-shirts, for screensavers and digital TVs around the college, around environmental issues. And the interesting thing on the project is that initially there was a little bit of resistance to the idea. So it's like, okay, we're going to look at some environmental issues and trying to get them interested. You know, what is it, what in particular worries you, or do you have anxieties around, and trying to, so they all could have their own take on it. And the exciting thing as the project's happened is that the students have got more and more into it, so they've done the research there and they've become passionate amongst themselves to tell those in the group about what they're working on. We set the rules that they weren't allowed to use anything new. So every item, even the words and the language they used, had to come from somewhere else. And it was an interesting shift in terms of power as well in the discussions that we had, and in terms of who would be the people that live the best lives in the future are actually probably the ones that are struggling now because they're better at dealing with issues. The Silicon Valley people are the ones, when all the power goes, are the ones who are going to struggle because they've had, but the people on the streets who are dealing with hardship all the time are the ones who would deal better with those issues. The thing I do like about the environmental responsibility bit is that it does turn it back on the individual, doesn't it? So it's something I want the college to use those phrases rather than, you know, awareness. Awareness allows you to go, oh, look at that thing happening somewhere else, doesn't it? Whereas responsibility says, no, what are you doing about it?
Alice Sharp is Artistic Director and founder of Invisible Dust, that works with leading artists and scientists to produce unique and exciting works of contemporary art and new scientific ideas exploring our environment and climate change. They make the invisible visible.
What can art and culture do to combat the climate crisis or keep the world beautiful?
I think we've got a really amazing opportunity in the arts. We are working with some of the most inventive, creative people across the UK who have got the most amazing ideas that could be harnessed into this whole challenge that we're all facing, which is the climate crisis. And it's a real opportunity at this point that the Arts Council have taken this as an investment principle. And but we want to reach a very large amount of people who maybe at the moment are feeling, well, climate change, I'm not sure this is my thing. I'm not sure whether I can get involved in that. I don't know if I've got time because I'm, facing what everyone is facing at the moment is the kind of hardship and the bills going up. Actually, art is a really good way of people engaging with things and feeling a meaning for it. And the great thing with art is you can actually get to people where they are on their own personal terms and get them to connect to that and say, oh, actually, I used to see those birds down the side of the river. Actually, where have they gone? And being hopeful as well, because we've talked about that as this positive messages is something which can be a hopeful message for people. Actually, air pollution is one of the climate change things we can do something about. Of course, we can reduce the amount of cars in our cities. Of course, we can go over to electric more. Of course, we can use more public transport. But do we want to do that? Do we want to make those choices? So it is one that you can actually do something about. So we can have a really hopeful message with something like that.
How do you negotiate the new investment principle where, say, ambition and quality have, it has the same weight as environmental responsibility?
No, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? What I'm really, really pleased about is the Arts Council have centred environmental responsibility as one of 4 principles. I mean, that is a massive change. Actually, we've now got it at centre stage as one of 4, which is just brilliant. And I think it's just a really fantastic opportunity for the arts right across the board to really seize this and do some really exciting projects and actually make a lot of change. Environmental responsibility can thread through everything. You can actually enable, whether you're doing a project about inclusivity, whether you're doing something about, ambition and the way that you want to organise your actual organisation, you can actually ensure that there is an environmental aspect to all these sides of things. So I think that there's a real opportunity for people. So I don't think everybody has to do this very, very large scale, installations. I think it's taking it at whatever level people are at. So it's really, giving people the opportunity to kind of see where they are and then do some really kind of interesting work with it.
So over to our Arts Council representative, Andrew Ellerby. Good luck.
Ooh.
Thank you.
It'd be great to hear your thoughts on this so far and perhaps any further words of advice.
So many thoughts, and it's really great to have the contributions. And I think what the conversation has done so far has just served to show the breadth of what we're hoping we can achieve with the investment principle. And it's no mean feat. And I think what I'd like to say is that we don't expect everybody to do everything. That's just not fathomable. It's not going to work. It's not one size fits all, and there's no right or wrong in the approach that you take. So I think the conversations that we've had are really kind of underpinning that a little bit so far. For the last 10 years, we've called it environmental sustainability. And I came into role in 2018, and we were really interested at that point in changing the narrative around what environmental sustainability meant. And we started to use internally the word responsibility as an idea to get away from it being just about data reporting. So it was really about opening up the box around environmental actions and saying to people, everybody can do something. And sometimes you just need to sit down and take a little bit of time to think about what actions are best for you, what can have the most impact, which is what you were talking a bit about before, Helen. It's been really good to hear people's different perspectives on it. And, we've gone through talking about event planning, through young people, through artist-led initiatives. And that is all super relevant. What we need to do as an organisation next to Arts Council is really think about how we support people. We're working to provide the right tools and resources and approaches to help people navigate the investment principle. It's going to look and feel and be different for every single person and for every organisation.
Yeah, I was just thinking, as we've discussed, it is the defining issue of our time. It's something that affects everybody all over the world. What would you hope by this investment principle for us to achieve in the arts and museums and libraries? What's your hope we'd achieve through the environmental responsibility principle.
What I hope we can achieve is that the creative and cultural sector is firmly at the front of change, and that it's no longer seen as a bystander in terms of being kind of down the list of people who can influence that change. And I think that the creative and culture is already showing that it can influence leadership and lead from the front. And in the northwest of England, there's 3 initiatives. There's GMAST in Manchester, Shift in Liverpool, and Sail in Leeds. And those 3 initiatives are all leading the way in terms of being led by cultural bodies, but taking along a whole city with them. So there's incredible examples of how culture and the creative sector can lead change, and I hope to see us at the front of it going forward.
We have one more question for you, Andrew, but it was prepared by a young person earlier today, Rosemary. So we're going to show you that now.
Hello, I'm Rosemary and I have a few questions. It's hard to incorporate environmental responsibility into creative practice and organisation. How can we understand it better so we don't all just abandon making work about anything else but the climate crisis to fulfil the gravity of the IP? And how can the individual take on board all the requirements to be responsible without the support of being an organisation? Do you prefer horse riding or tennis?
About 17 questions. Yeah. Can I start with the last question in that case? I prefer horse riding. I mean, nobody wants to see every artist in the world make work about climate change. We'd all be so tired and exhausted, and thinking about that intersection of ambition and quality and inclusion and relevance and social justice within that, and also dynamism. Everybody has to find their own paths within the way that they respond to this. So there's loads of different ways that we can approach this, and it shouldn't just be through the creation of work. But there's definitely an untapped power to some of that, I would say, at the minute. And there's some incredible projects out there at the minute. But they don't all have to be massive pieces of work either. Doing work on the local community level is going to be just as important at influencing change as creating something on the large scale. And it's kind of what we've touched on before. It's about people understanding what they can achieve and what they want to achieve and how to achieve it. But we're not saying to people, this is how you do it. We're not being directive. We want to give people the tools and skills to think about what it means to them as an individual as well. And actually, just coming back to something, to your question, Alice, about the change I would like to see, in organisations specifically, I want to see this as a standing agenda item on every board minute and on every board meeting that happens. And the board need to be leading this from the front, the change that they expect, not kind of expecting it just to happen magically throughout an organisation without proper responsibility being handed over to the people that want to make that change.
Welcome back to IPTV. It's exciting because Alice has left us just momentarily, don't worry, but the cake has arrived, hasn't it? Hasn't it? So her loss, she'll be back in a minute, but who have we got?
We are delighted to welcome Anne-Marie and Kath from Phoenix Plant-Based Eatery. It's here in St Helens. It's a cafe bang in the middle of the town, and if you want to go, which you should, it can be found on Bridge Street.
You are a vegan cafe. You also sell incredible vegan skincare, upcycled jewellery and pre-loved records. How did it all begin?
We started off with an upcycle business, clothes, because we was horrified with the amount of clothes that was going into landfill. And then progressed on to the furs, and then from the furs we moved into the vegan restaurant.
So you've brought us some of your food, vegan food today. Can you tell us what we've got here? What have we got to eat?
So you've got chocolate tart, lemon drizzle, carrot cake, summer fruit, coffee and walnut, Bakewell tart, just cake.
All vegan. Yeah, well, help yourself, everyone. Tuck in, you know, probably some much needed sustenance at the moment.
So have we got many vegans in St Helens now, inspired by your business?
There are pockets of vegans in St Helens, and I have seen quite a few change their ways since coming into the restaurant. A lot of people who come in are not vegan, they just they're doing their bit for the environment.
So, well, thank you so much for coming along. Thank you for the cake. I think it's gone down a treat.
Very well.
Definitely has. And thanks for coming to chat to us this afternoon. We're going to release you back out into St Helens.
They're very busy.
Back
They're
to
very
the
busy.
kitchen.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you all.
It is the end.
Yes, it is. But before we go, we have one final question for the panel. This is quick fire. You'll be
No
pleased
pressure.
to know, no pressure. So we're going to start with you, Helen. What is the best thing about this investment principle?
That it's all-encompassing. It's not just about data gathering, counting numbers. It's throughout the whole stages of the planning, delivery and everything.
It's going to help save the world.
That it recognises the role of art in the climate challenge and enables us to really have a very powerful response to the climate crisis going forward.
That it's out there and people are talking about it. And although it's an Arts Council title, like we came up with environmental responsibility, the investment principle thing, it's sector-led. This came from the lobbying of the sector. We've been doing our work around it for a while, but we'd never have got this kind of degree of visibility without the sector really being behind it.
Great. And you know, Darton, you said one more question.
I've got one more
I
question.
knew you had one more. This is one more question.
If this investment principle was an animal, what animal would it be?
A pepper moth.
Oh, I did not expect that. Why?
A pepper moth.
Yeah, because it changed its colour because of pollution, and then because of the Clean Air Act, it changed back again. I'm very much stealing that from an upcoming piece of work. Sorry about that.
Pepper moth it is. Ian.
It's a fox.
It's a fox. Of course it's a fox.
Adaptable to wherever it ends up to change.
Very good. It likes bins.
And it likes bins.
It's a ant because they live in colonies and they can only survive by cooperating together.
It's a bee because you take that out of the ecology and the whole thing breaks down.
Lovely.
Excellent
Great
work.
stuff. Great stuff.
Okay, so we know as much resistance as I have to this, my usual reservations, it's time for Darton's IP takeaway.
Yes, it is. I'm very excited. This is today's takeaway. Are you ready, Hunt?
No.
Environmental responsibility. If you don't look after the world, the mothership, then none of it matters or can carry on. Sort it out.
Wow, it's clear. On that note, thanks very much to everyone. This was IPTV, and we will see you next time. Massive thanks to our panel. This was IPTV. You were great. Goodbye.
Goodbye.